days I miss being around base, and I'm like, maybe we should open the shop by base, and then I'm like, no, we shouldn't fucking open the shop by base. Let her get in there. Oh, sorry.
No, certainly not.
Why? Why are you certain?
What do you miss about it, John?
I don't think money. I don't know.
We're trying to get more away from post.
No,
we're
I
trying to
got
go to
you.
exit 4.
Yeah.
Wilma, it's just so much better. You know, and we look at like guys are on Fort Campbell Boulevard. There's so many gun shops, right? But when guys leave post, what's the first thing they want to do? They want to go home, dude. They don't want to stay by
Yeah, we had a
post.
captive audience on Pendleton because they weren't allowed to get, like, on the weekend they couldn't go home.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them did, but we always had the kids through there. But nowadays, man, I'd probably fucking choke the shit out of one of them smart ass. Like, back then, you'd have the dudes are like, why is this fucking so expensive? And you know, you'd educate them and shit. But now I'd want to fucking just slap one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's what we were like, man. Even if we just go down one exit for Wilma Rudolph, I said the mindset on Wilma is everyone's in shopping mode. You know what I mean? Like, hey, that's where they go to shop. You know what I mean? Here, that's a road to go home. That's it. They're not trying to stop, and you know. So if you get over there, probably be 10 times better. You know. But yeah, we get the same thing. Guys come in, they're like, "Oh, I know." And you're like, "Okay, then you know." You know, then why are you asking me? Because you already know.
Right, what are you doing here?
Yeah, exactly.
Just tell me what you want, and I'll fucking get it for you. And give me some money.
Mm-hmm.
Semi-automatic saw.
They
So
already
that
make
was,
it
that's the last piece.
$8,000.
I know.
Good Lord.
That's the last piece. And I'll have every weapon I carried when I was in.
I need some.
You need the guy.
Well,
Rambo.
Not the gun,
I never carried the gun around.
Which one? 1, 2, or 3?
Yeah, 1, 2, or 3. I never carried the gun around.
That's what he went in for, was to
That's
carry
what-
the fucking 60.
That's all I wanted to do was carry an
That's
M60.
big.
And then when I got there, they're like, "You're left-handed. You cannot be a
it's just
machine
pork.
gunner." I'm like, "What the
Just bulk.
fuck?"
I didn't think the pork belly.
And then when I got to
right enough.
19, when I finally got
Just
to my
making a little
my,
carnitas.
final
Yeah,
destination, they
Just waiting
send us
until
all to
we
the
get
armory to get weapons.
Well, I got
And,
another piece.
you know, I'm gonna
too,
get an M16. I was
just
a
to be
rifleman.
safe. They're safe.
And so they're doing it, and there's this fucking salty corporal with I think he was wearing a Grateful Dead bandana, and you know he'd been in the Corps 6 years, and he was fucking still a corporal or some shit, a lance corporal probably at that time. And he's telling us the squad leader's like, "I thought you said I could get rid of my rifle when we got new boots," and he's like, "You know what? You're right. You can get rid of your shit." And I was next in line, and so he throws his card in, and then they pass a saw through, and I'm like, "That's all. That's it right here. This is all I wanted to do when I joined the Marine Corps was carry a machine gun. That's it. That's all I want. My dreams come true, and I'm left-handed."
It's cool.
They're going to 6.8 round, from what I hear. Getting rid of the 5.56, 6.8.
No way.
Yeah,
Do you think that's really gonna
I
happen?
think so. They put it on Army Times.
Yeah,
Oh, shit.
So
you
I
gotta
would assume that.
you gotta-
probably not right away, but they're
you got to
probably-
do a little history research. 6.8 has been so basically the U.S. Army, not the Marine Corps, but the U.S. Army has wanted to get rid of the 5.56 since Mogadishu, because all the Delta guys were saying, "Hey, you know, we're shooting these guys." Like they were literally shooting people, and then aiming over the brick wall and shooting the brick wall because they're like, "We're not hitting them. There's something wrong. We're not hitting these people." But because, you know, the Green Tip SS-109, the whole idea behind it was we were going to fight the Russians. The Russians are all going to be wearing some sort of body armor, or they're going to be in some sort of hard metal skin vehicle that we need to penetrate. So that's where the Green Tip came in, and that's why we adopted it service-wide as Green Tip, because we're going to fight the Russians, and there's going to be some sort of body armor that we're going to have to punch through. Well, the problem with Green Tip is the problem with Green Tip is the same reason why we got it, is for its penetrating capabilities. And when you shoot a soft target wearing fucking pajamas and flip-flops with a 5.56 Green Tip, it just makes a 22 caliber hole, and a 22 caliber hole will seal itself. So a dude that's been eating cot all day or high on whatever gets hit by a Green Tip and it goes right through him. He didn't even know he got shot. So that is kind of the problem with Green Tip. And the Army's been wanting to get rid of it since Mogadishu. This is the third time, probably, in my 20 years, this is probably the third time I have seen, whether it was the Army times, the Marine Corps times, the Navy, I've seen a post about we're going to transition to the 6.8. It's not the first time they've made so they made basically a saw converted 6.8, and they. And they did something else. But it's not the first time. Even Special Forces ran around with some 6.8s for a while, way back in the first part of the war. They were like, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, we need 6.8. The problem, and Travis Mitchell, I'm talking to you because remember you told me 10 years ago that the Army was going to go to 6.8. The problem with once you get out of the operator area, so like an operator is going to be like, yes, this is the greatest thing we need this, we need to buy this, blah blah blah. If it conflicts with big Army, and when I say big Army, I'm talking about Department of Defense, I'm talking about Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, everybody. If it conflicts with big Army, it doesn't matter how cool it is. Unless you are Special Operations Command, you're not going to get it. And the reason why I say that is because there's probably, I'll bet, easy, there's 100 billion rounds of 5.56 green tip in the NATO block. So the first thing they're going to say is, well, we got to shoot all this ammo, which we do shoot a lot of ammo, so it could go pretty quick. But the problem is, the last part I just said, it's NATO. It's the NATO standard round. So if a U.S. Army guy has to go to London, England to fight the Germans again, when he gets to England, there's going to be 5.56 right there because the British are using 5.56. When he gets to Poland, Poland is a NATO country. There's going to be 5.56 right there. So what you do is when you do that, you destroy part of your supply chain, right? So I don't have this big supply chain that has to follow me around because everywhere I go, that standard NATO ammunition is there, right? That's kind of why, like, the Marine Corps is still using 45s. 45 is a NATO round, but it's not a NATO round that anybody uses anymore. Everybody's using 9mm. So when the Marine Corps goes anywhere, they have to bring that ammunition with them. Well, since the MUSOC guys are the only ones since the Force Recon MUSOC guys are the only ones that are carrying that ammo, it's not a big deal. They embark on ship, it goes with them everywhere they go. But if the MU had to go into Iran and fight the Iranians, and it became a protracted engagement, it would not be long before they would be like, hey, we have none of this ammunition in theater. We need more, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And that's the reason why all these wonder calibers kind of get crushed. It's the same thing with, like, they actually just recently converted a machine gun to 6.5.
Okay. Because
6.5, according to the shooting community, has a better ballistic coefficient than 308. So it's actually better than 308. But once again, 6.5 is not a cartridge that's readily available in millions and millions of rounds, and it's also not a NATO standard. So in order for the U.S. to adopt a 6.8, like across the board, we have to convince NATO, hey, we've decided we're going to go to a 6.8. We're getting rid of the 5.56. The British are already pissed off at us and have been pissed off at us for fucking 20 years about 5.56. Well, not really. They got over the T thing. They got over the T thing. They're over all that. They're glad they don't have to deal with it with our crazy asses anymore, anyways. But the British really did not want to leave 7.62. They really didn't want to leave 7.62, and we forced 5.56 on all the NATO countries, saying that has to be the standard. So, like, you still got SAS guys that are running around. You'll see SAS guys running around with 7.62 guns and stuff like that. But for the most part, the regular, when you're talking about regular army, wherever it is, to include Poland, who's now NATO, Estonia, which is now a NATO country, their AK-47s are all converted to 5.56. So when you look at it from a realistic, logistical, the world, and think it's not just a matter of us. It's not just a matter of us buying a new rifle. It's probably the reason why. I would say this is the biggest reason why, like the Marine Corps, and I do not agree with this. The Marine Corps has changed in the last 10 years, the rifle that the regular infantry guy carries, they've changed 4 times. They're still shooting a 5.56. They haven't made, outside of the adoption of an optic, so putting optics on all Marine Corps guns, that was a great idea. But outside of the adoption of the optic, they haven't made the gun any more lethal. It's still shooting the same bullet. So that's the same thing. So the Marine Corps is now paying fucking $6,000 or $5,000. I'm sure all you internet ninjas are gonna correct me on the price, but they're paying an ungodly amount of money for these HK 5.56 guns. They're no more lethal than the M16 that my uncle took into Vietnam. They shoot the exact same bullet. As a matter of fact, one could argue that they are less lethal because we're shooting green tip.
Yeah, but the weapon system itself has evolved to eliminate most of the problems with that weapon system. So when you when you compare that to let's say when the M16 first came out and was introduced, right? You compare that HK, piston-driven system versus the DI system. You know what I mean? And in the environment that we're constantly fighting in, it makes the weapon system better to perform with the round that it shoots.
And that's kind of the thing. So when you look at an M16 and the years of development, and we have basically we're basically at a point, and it doesn't matter, comparing, when you're comparing a piston gun to a gas gun, it kind of doesn't matter anymore. We're at a point right now where the M16 or that platform is as good as it's going to get.
Correct.
But my point is always lethality. It's always about lethality. It does not matter. It does not matter if you have a gun that can shoot. If you have one gun that can shoot 50,000 rounds and you have one gun that can shoot 75,000 rounds. If they're shooting the same bullets into the target, it's the lethality that's important. It's the downrange. What happens downrange is always more important than what's happening here at the shooter.
Correct.
Well, the technology's better, and that helps increase your lethality. We're still shooting a 5.56, so to go from M16A2s to M16A4s to M4 carbines to HK, you're not doing anything except spending money. That's all they're doing, is they're just spending money. And that's our fault for giving them so much goddamn money. They don't need it. The Air Force does not need a $10,000 hammer, and the Marine Corps does not need a $5,000 AR-15. That's just my opinion. I know there's a bunch of gunners out there who are getting kickbacks and all that shit and love HK. I love HK. I have plenty of HKs. I would even have that rifle if it wasn't fucking $5,000.
Yeah.
But to me, it's always going to be about lethality. And where we're going from, the 6.8, in that short range category, is way more lethal than the 5.56.
But if you're going to do that, I would much rather go with the 300 blackout. 300 blackout. I mean, CAG's used 300 blackout and 40 cal for years now. So especially if you're doing close quarters battle, the 300 blackout with the knockdown energy that has, I would take that over 6.8 any day.
Well, the best part about 300 blackout that makes it better than 6.8 is no transition.
Mhm.
So if I want to go into the house party, I can go subsonic. Boom! I leave the house. I got to shoot a little further. I can put fucking the good bullets in there. I can put my supersonic in there, and so I'm not. There's no. It doesn't. It's not hanky. That is the best thing about 300
The
blackout.
worst part about that is your holdovers.
Yeah.
So you have to teach guys that because you're
Well,
going
you know that
from
there's
a 110 to a 220 subsonic.
there's
you
a
know.
lot of optics. There's a lot of optics companies that are doing multiple dots for that. So
Correct.
you have two different points of aim. It's all training, but but to get back to our original thing, they're not going to adopt 6.8. They're not going to adopt 6.8 at a Army level.
Okay.
Just because of what I said with the NATO. Everybody always forgets about that at the ground level, because it's, when you're talking about a piece of gear that you think will improve your survivability on the battlefield, you don't give a fuck where it's made. You're not looking at. I don't give a shit about what they're doing in England. But the bean counters, the real people, the people that are going to pay that bill, are going to be like, yeah, no. It's just like, so Marine Corps. An example of that is the Marine Corps. We went from special ball, M118 special ball, to M118 long range, and then now they have come out with the ammunition that's alpha. It's still long range, but it's the alpha designator, I believe, but it's better. It's a little more. It's the quality control on it's a little tighter. But they did it all on top of each other.
Mm-hmm.
So like the bean counters are like, yeah, we understand that this ammunition is better, but you still have 20 million rounds of this ammunition
Mm-hmm.
that you need to shoot before you can get to the good stuff. That's what a lot of people don't, when they think about just military technology and the money we spend on getting rid of stuff or transitioning from the new to the old. It's ridiculous. It is utterly ridiculous how much money that we're just flushing down the toilet. So I mean, that's my take. So U.S. Army, if you go to 6.8, good on you, but you're not going to find any 6.8 ammo when you get to Tehran, or in case we fight the Germans again. I'm sorry, Germany, but you're going down. Yeah, I don't even know why you start wars. You never win them. But yeah, so that's just. Nobody ever thinks about that, as once you get it, especially, and SF is the worst.
Mm-hmm.
The Special Forces guys, the CAD guys, they're the worst because they have that what they call discretionary funding. So they can open the fridge. They can open the fridge and look at any shelf and go, oh, look,
Yeah,
what's
we
that?
want some of
What are you
these.
trying to hide behind the root
Yep.
beer? They can pull that out and be like, yeah, we want 10,000 of these. And the way the Army looks at it is
Separate, it's USASI.
well, it's not only is it separate, but it really doesn't cost the Army shit, right? When you think about I don't know, let's say we're gonna buy every Special Forces guy I don't know, a pulse plasma rifle, right? Even in Army budgeting world, when that bill comes in, it still does not amount to the amount of money that the Army will spend on boots.
Oh yeah, correct.
For
Yep.
real Army,
Yep,
right?
correct.
It's kind of like Navy. Navy SEALs is actually a better example because, the Navy, they build aircraft carriers. Everything else is support. They build aircraft carriers. I'm sorry if you're on a cruiser or a destroyer, you're still support to the carrier. submarine, you're still support to the carrier. You know, the Navy builds aircraft carriers. And when you have this little small little group of guys over in the sand in Coronado or on the East Coast, and they're like, we need $100,000 for, you know, boats that fly.
Yeah.
The Navy's like, fuck, we'll spend more money on Brasso next year. So that's how the Navy SEALs get, you know, whatever they want. Same thing with the CAG guys. You know, when you talk about real budgets, when you talk about big real budgets, that money, even though they get some crazy gear, you know, CAG guys will have 19 fucking night vision goggles on their head, and you've got one, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yep.
Still, it was cheaper to buy them that than to buy all the fucking night vision for everybody else in regular Army.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how that works. I mean, you know, example 2 is Marine Corps. The Force Recon and the Battalion Recon guys, they're still budgeted within the Marine Corps. So they get a little bit of play, they get a little bit of cool stuff. But the bean count in the Marine Corps, the bean counters are still like every rifleman, every Marine is a rifleman.
Yeah.
What? Why are these guys getting extra? Whatever the fuck that is. Mm-hmm. And that's why for the Marine Corps, it was a terrible idea. But having MARSOC established and getting put into, you know, into the special group with the other special guys, that's where all that downward trickle has come from, because the Marine Corps, it's still every Marine is a rifleman, and when the Commandant, and they don't do it, well, I don't know, I'm not going to speak for the Commandant now, but originally, when the Commandant started, when the idea was to have this MARSOC force, he was like, their idea was, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to train up all these ninjas, and they're going to go spend 4 years in MARSOC doing ninja stuff, and then we're going to pull them, and we're going to put them in infantry platoons, and then we're going to have all these ninja platoon sergeants, which are going to train all these individual fighters. They're going to train all these individual fighters, and then the Marine Corps is just going to be a bunch of ninjas. That was the original plan, was to not have this force separate from the Marine Corps. Well, the problem was, I don't want to say it's a problem, and MARSOC may have done this intentionally, is they immediately said, well, if we're going to operate within the, you know, the JSOF forces, then we need to do all the same things that JSOF forces do. And so the Marine Corps, because, you know, they're busy doing other things, they don't pay attention to the small print, and they're like, yeah, we want you to be just as ninja as they are. Well, that means pre-selection, selection, ranger school, jump school, blah, blah, blah. So you got a dude that's been in the Marine Corps for 4 years, and he's like, I'm ready to deploy. You know, pull pin, I'm ready to deploy. And the Marine Corps is like, wait a minute, you haven't even deployed yet? We can't take you back. And so Jason, you know, so those guys have been kind of sequestered in their own little world, but it is what it is. But and then because they're in their own little world, but they're still in the Marine Corps, you know, the Marine Corps still sees them. It's not like like Delta. We'll talk about Delta Force. You go to the compound, and it's fucking walled off and closed and blinds, and you're not allowed to look in there, and it's in the middle of an army base. The Marine Corps is not like that. They're like, hey, you know, yeah, we know you guys are doing your thing, but you still kind of belong to us. So MARSOC will get a piece of gear, and then somebody from Force Recon will see that gear and he'll be like, oh man, that's kind of cool. I don't know why we don't have it. Hey sir, you know, these guys got this really bitchin' piece of gear, and then he'll be like, we could probably get that. I'll bet if we do this and this, and then he gets it, and then some battalion commander with a regular infantry battalion's like, hey man, how come they got rain gear that works? and then before you know it, the rest of the Marines are getting. So it still kind of trickles up, but it's a long road. It's a long road, and I think, I know you Marines are going to hate me, but I think it kind of ruins things a little bit too. Like when I got there,